Okay, we're live.
All right.
Do you feel a little bit more comfortable now?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that's great. So what have you been doing today?
Well, today has been a bit of a crazy day. It's been like everyone else. I was wondering if you were going to call while the 7 o'clock cheer was on, because it's pretty noisy.
Yeah, I guess you're downtown then, right?
What about yourself?
Um, yeah, today I spent the whole day inside a hedge or on top of a hedge.
You said sliding down a hedge or something?
Yeah, we call it hedge surfing. I don't know if everybody calls it that. I call it that. I was basically had to climb inside when you can't reach the top of a hedge with like a ladder or a boom. You have to climb in and do it from the inside or find your way.
Some of them are really big.
Yeah, and Vancouverites seem to love hedges.
I bet that's one of the things in Vancouver I've seen is you can't see the house for the hedge. They
Yeah.
grow them up way tall and you can't see what's behind them.
Everything seems to grow really well in Vancouver except for grass.
Yeah.
People struggle to have their lawns really nice, but everything else just gets way out of control.
I wish they didn't have such big hedges. I'd like to see some of these beautiful houses that are hidden behind them.
Yeah, it's really nice to see them. Just to work in their gardens is quite a pleasure.
I bet. I can't even imagine.
Yeah,
well, a great way to spend the day today. It was so warm out.
Yeah, I definitely need to be more mindful of using sun cream. I have nice pink shape and white panda eyes from safety glasses and lots of burns and scratches all over.
Well, I think coming up Thursday, they're calling for rain for another week or so, so that might help.
Oh, that's the opposite of what I want.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll take that back. I'm sure I didn't read that correctly. I'm sure I made a mistake there for sure.
So you're a nature-based psychotherapist, right?
Right.
Is that how you would describe or like give the title of what you do?
Well, I would, because that if I'm not seeing them in nature, if I'm seeing them in my office, I'm typically giving them homework to go into nature and to incorporate that into their lives. So often I do see them in nature. We'll either walk, or we might just find a nice place to sit, or alternatively, I will see them in my office, as I said, and that's always part of the homework because it's extremely healing. As you probably know, being out there yourself in nature on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's that's a really interesting one actually. They say that just like 20 minutes or so of being in nature a day can significantly reduce cortisol levels.
Well, I've seen a study came out even last week that would even went as low as saying 10 minutes a day.
Really?
So absolutely. Well, you know yourself, if you go into nature and it's nice, it's peaceful, as soon as you arrive or you settle down, it's immediate. It's absolutely immediate.
Yeah.
You can feel your whole body slowing down, your heart rate slowing down. It's very quick.
Yeah, that's the kind of conflict there is with the type of job that I do. It's you are kind of very nature connected in a way, but it's a very stressful job.
Oh, really? Why is that?
Well, it's very physically demanding, first of all.
I believe that.
And it's within the most dangerous industry in Canada. So you're climbing trees held on by a rope, and you're carrying very sharp instruments and power tools.
I guess that's true. I never really thought of that. I think of lower ones where you're just taking small shrubs that are down low and
days like that are really peaceful.
Yeah, I've never really thought about that. I always see that the people for the city that are the ones that are way up there with their cherry pickers, and I thought that was more city work, but I guess not always.
Yeah. So for me, I tend to find I do get the relaxation of being in nature, especially when I first get to the work site or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciate well taken care of places. And also when, say for example, I get to the top of a tree and you get that amazing view and you're like, you can feel the bark on your hands, you can smell everything. That's really beautiful. There are lots of really beautiful moments. And I find myself like, I mean, I'm hugging the tree most of the day, just to cling on to it. And then I'm also, I tend to speak to them as well and say like, thank you for being strong enough to hold my weight, and thank you for allowing me to see the view that I can see. So those moments are.
Do you have to climb up the tree by yourself, or you've got a ladder that you lean against it?
It depends. Usually you just kind of get a rope into the tree and start climbing up. If you can use a ladder, it makes it, you get higher more easily, so you don't have to use as much energy to get to where you need to be, kind of get halfway or a third of the way or something. But then,
I used to have a client who was an arborist, and I never had that sort of respect for him, and you've given me a whole new level of respect for him.
yeah, it's they're pretty tough people I work with. It's yeah, I have a lot of respect.
Clearly, it's not something you do into your 70s, I guess.
No, some people seem to. There are a few that seem to still be going. I've seen, anyway, there's like 50s. Some people still doing some things in their 60s.
Wow.
Probably not 70s. I would want to just, have a rest. I don't know why you'd want to keep doing that to your body, unless it's just something that you love so much that you can't stop.
I can't imagine. I gave up climbing trees myself many years ago.
Is it something that you kind of encourage the people you work with to do?
To climb trees?
Yeah.
No one's ever asked me about climbing trees. If they wanted to, I would say absolutely, climb a tree, spend some time in the tree, why not? But usually just getting them out, that's a big deal right there.
Right.
And doing it on a regular basis, because everyone is busy, right?
Yeah. So
really nice to see, if nothing else, all these families out. I was out in Capilano North, what's it called? The Capilano River Park this afternoon, and seeing families down by the water with their children that I've never seen ever before in Vancouver. And I go there a lot, but seeing them and having picnics in the park with their families, and it brings me back to thinking of movies from the 50s or things like that. It's so rare. It's so nice to see.
So the people, well, how long have you been doing what you do?
I've been a psychotherapist for over 20 years, but I've moved toward the nature therapy in 2015, and that was because it saved me, and I started doing a lot of research and a lot of studies on it, both research and studies myself, my own studies with my own business.
Are you comfortable in telling me the story of how it saved you?
Well, it saved me in that as a psychotherapist for a while, I had a real struggle. I was in a divorce and I lost my son, and that was very difficult to go on. And so, I had to make a choice of what I wanted to do. And you have to find a reason to go on. So, I turned to God, and I turned to that in a belief like I never had before, because you have to find something. And I was finding that it was really having an effect on me. So then I started the research, and that spoke for itself. So with that, when I went back, I immediately incorporated that, after the studying that we did and all the studies that have done around the world, incorporated that into my practice with myself and my colleagues. And we were getting outstanding results that we just couldn't get them that fast, or the calmness that was coming, and it was an absolute. I don't know if I answered your question or not.
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing story. Oh, I'm sorry to hear about your son.
I'm sorry?
Sorry to hear about your son.
Yeah, thank you. It was very difficult, but anyone can do it. And I say that it doesn't matter what your situation, that if you have the right, if you change your life and you change your diet and you change your way of thinking and your whole philosophy, you absolutely can pull through pretty well anything. I would say anything.
Are you doing any of those things at the moment in order to help you kind of deal with?
Oh, it's incorporated into my life. Half an hour of yoga or something, stress management, an hour of meditation and something in nature, absolutely, every day, an hour and a half minimum.
That's great.
And changing your diet and your whole philosophy from work to really what is important. And I've heard a lot about the COVID, that things will change, and I hope it does, though I haven't seen a lot of it. Maybe those are the people that aren't coming out or reaching out because they are picking up on it.
Are you have you had to change the way that you work with people due to the situation?
No, I don't think so. That is still the same. The psychotherapy part is important because you need to be able to find spaces to see, where a blockage is or to work things out. So that part hasn't changed. Just adding the rest has gotten faster results continually. So that's the only part, really.
What, in terms of like nuts and bolts, what do you actually do with people when they come to you?
Well, usually it's up to them. The first visit is usually a couple of hours long where we go through what they're dealing with, and I have a battery of questions that I go through to see if I can pinpoint any particular areas, and that's up to them. It really depends on where they want things to go. So really the sky's the limit. It could take a little longer, it could be a little shorter, but that's really entirely up to them.
And what kind of things do you suggest for people to do? What kind of things do you kind of say prescribe, maybe, but not in the form of drugs?
Well, if we were to do the whole gauntlet, it's everything. It's your whole philosophy. So spirituality is important. People are three-part beings without any doubt. So you have to have something, and you either believe in God or you believe in spirituality, or you believe there's something, or you can believe whatever you like. But there has to be something there where you're going to gain some peace from. And for some people that could even just be meditation, and that is very spiritual on its own. It absolutely is.
Do you come across many people who don't have a kind of religious or spiritual way?
I would say most of them, but no, let me take that back. Most of them will say they don't believe in God. But most of them will say that they are spiritual to some degree. So that's enough. So that's one, and you are what you put into your body. So if you've had a poor lifestyle for years and years and years, and you're not eating properly, or you're not putting great ingredients into your body, that's going to catch up with you in a very, very bad way eventually. It doesn't just happen. It grows, and the results are not good. So you'd need to change everything, and slowly. I mean, the biggest part is to do it slowly. If someone is not eating well and not sleeping properly and not looking after themselves, you can't do it in 180 degrees. You need to go gradually.
There's too much to deal with in one go, though.
I'm sorry?
Too much to deal with in one go.
I didn't catch you there still.
So it's probably too much to deal with in one go.
Well, it is, and it's daunting, and I need them to come back. They're not going to have any success if they don't come back and have someone to talk to and to work through it and to support them. So that's always important.
So would you?
So you know yourself, if you take sorry?
I was going to ask if you kind of refer people to a nutritionist, or if you work with that person yourself to kind of manipulate or change certain things in their nutrition.
It depends. As I said, everyone is different, but usually we work as a team. So if I want to call them for something, then I'll do that. Or if I need some background information, then they're agreeing for me to do that, or they'll supply it to me themselves, or the nutritionist might call, well, not usually the nutritionist, but depending on who we're working with, yeah, often.
So what are the most common like bad nutritional things that you come across? Or would you say are the worst for people to get involved with?
Well, eating the meat is in our society, with all the things that's injected into it, whether it's hormones or what it's being injected, or even what the animals are being fed, is terrible. Eating meat is great, but it's just so hard to find it that it hasn't been injected with any number of horrible things. And certainly eating lots of fruits and vegetables, that's often difficult, and many people are guilty of that. Cutting out all those fried foods, the white sugar, the white flour, anything that's in a box is going to be daunting. But yeah, there's a lot of changes that people can make, but not all at once. It's difficult. Some people can. I haven't met any, but I'm sure there are many.
So you work with people to find a religious or spiritual path in a way, and you work with their nutrition um, and kind of sleep habits. And what else do you do with them?
Well, they usually have some problems that they're dealing with, so we're dealing with that at the same time. And teaching meditation is really important. How to get through active meditation is usually my favorite, because you can use that all day long, no matter what you're doing. If something is bothering you, you can learn to change your relationship with whatever bothers you. If something upsets you, change your relationship with that through active meditation, so that you have a choice to react or to not react. And that's huge. And you can't do that without practicing. Just like anything else, you can't get good at anything without practicing. And it accumulates. It has an accumulative effect.
Have you had much experience with shadow work?
With what?
With shadow work.
I can't make out what you're saying.
Have you had much experience with shadow work?
With
Shadow work.
shadow work? No, I haven't. I don't even know what that is, aside from shadowing someone.
I'm not the. I'm definitely not an expert. So I might completely hash up the explanation of what shadow work is. But my general understanding of it is being able to become aware and express the darker sides of yourself, what society might perceive as like the negative emotions that we hold, like anger, sadness, distrust, like jealousy.
I don't work a lot with that at all. I tend to focus on going forward as opposed to what's already there. That's a lot deeper, because usually if there is something and you invoke the spirituality and meditation and changing your diet and changing your whole lifestyle, that tends to automatically come along with it. When you're feeling better and your whole outlook is better, your whole mental state is better, that usually just disappears. And if it isn't, we will take a look at what's left over. But usually that's not an issue. In fact, I can't even think of a case off the top of my head. That usually just resolves itself. And the psychotherapy is how to deal with different things when they do come up, because often that's something that needs to be relearned.
I see a counselor every now and again, and I've seen some therapists in the past. And the ones that I've seen here in Vancouver have often told me that 50% of their 50% of the people they work with, their clients, are highly sensitive people, highly sensitive persons. Do you have much experience with HSP?
I don't know that that would be my finding. I would say it's far, far less than that. They certainly have their heart in the right place when they go into it, but it's few people that have a talent, a real talent. And I say that from experience, both being on both sides of the table. So that's my opinion.
Okay. So what would you say the majority of your clients get from what you do, get from the work that you do?
Well, I hope they get happiness. I hope that they get through and find whatever they're looking for. I did marriage counseling for over 10 years, and I became very successful doing that. I had 2 offices that were quite busy and was planning to open up a 3rd office. I got very successful very quickly, and I was called on by newspapers and radio shows and all sorts of things. And I got successful so quickly only dealing with logic as opposed to the textbook ways. And not that there's anything wrong with them, but every situation is so completely different. And so that's not something that's often found out there, because you have to have some experience and you have your own history that you're dealing with. And I mean, there's just so much in the mix, right?
So if you found that to be such a success for you, what was it that kind of pushed you in a different direction or called you in a different direction?
Well, it got really tiring because people don't listen. So it doesn't matter how successful you are. I was successful, but they weren't having success, because usually by the time they show up, it's just like the last thing I do before I file for a divorce.
Yeah.
So at that point, it's far too late. One of them is typically already checked out, and usually one or both aren't doing anything you're asking anyway. And to come in once a week, that's another thing that I don't necessarily agree with. So sometimes I've had clients where they're coming in 3 times a week initially till we can get things back on track and get them into a better place as quickly as possible. And once a week, when you're having problems, can feel like once a month, and it's not enough. It absolutely isn't enough. And the whole thing of just 50 minutes or even an hour once a week, it doesn't do enough if you're in a really bad place.
Do you find it
so with that, and not having the success I would like to, and wanting to wring their neck very often, it was a really good move to add more into it. And when I found we could incorporate the spirituality as well as their whole lifestyle, it was no return.
Do you find the people who come to you now are also kind of like last resort, in that place where like I have no idea what else to try, I might as well give this a go? Or are they people who
No, most of them are the now, and I'd like to be able to reach those, because I don't really know how to reach those aside from through social media, which is not my forte, or it's certainly not at this point. Usually it's the ones that are looking after themselves and want to just add an extra piece to that. And so, yes, they have great success, but I would certainly love to be able to reach the others, because they fall on listening what they hear on the media and being directed to go somewhere, and that's what they're familiar with. So no, not necessarily.
I'm quite glad to hear that you find there are lots of people who just kind of incorporate therapy into their life before getting to that point. I think that's really necessary. Even if you feel like you're on top of the world all the time, you know, I still believe that everybody should have access to some form of therapy, or somebody just to somebody that they can completely open up to and feel safe with in doing that, and also being guided through that, I think is really important. Even if you feel like you're one of the best performers and you have everything together, I still think it's a really crucial thing just to keep in your toolkit. And I don't do it enough myself, but I kind of find it in other ways, in a sense.
Well, people like you are a little further on their journey, because those are the ones that probably need less help. They know exactly what they knew. They've done a lot of self-discovery, and they're certainly more aware. It's the ones that haven't necessarily that are the harder ones to reach, and probably the ones that could use it more.
So
if you have a way to reach those, let me know.
I will keep my mind open to that, definitely. I was going to ask you if you have like a plan of how to reach these people.
No, I'll be asking you that. I think it's through advertising. It takes time, and I've only been in the Vancouver area since December, so on my way back, that is by far not enough time. It takes years to be able to have yourself known and to be heard, and particularly organically. So with a lot of money, you could do a lot of advertising, I guess, and that would be there, but I don't know of any other way.
So you don't usually live in you're not usually in Vancouver area, is that right?
No, I live in Ontario.
Okay. So what was it that brought you over here?
Well, my daughter moved out here, and so I'd toyed with the idea for some time to establish an office out here, and well, that was a perfect setup. But I'm now actively wanting to get back to Ontario, and I should have already left by now, so that was definitely it. So I wanted to try it out. I came out last year to see if it was viable, and it definitely was. And so this year I did a little more work at that.
Have you noticed many differences between where you're from in Ontario and here?
Oh, yes.
Would you like to share them with me?
It's quite different.
Yeah.
The people are different. The way of thinking is different.
I'm really curious to hear, like, in what way. So I have no other experience of Canada really except Vancouver and places very, very close to Vancouver, especially for long periods of time. So
well, they deal with an awful lot of stress. I've never seen anything like it in my life. Between the cost of living and where people live and what they can afford, I was shocked that most people can't afford a car. They can't afford the insurance. I go to the supermarket in Ontario, and I fill my cart up, and I mean it's overflowing sometimes. And here I see 2 or 3 items on the conveyor belt, and I'm assuming because money is extremely tight. And that stress is, the traffic is like nothing I've seen in my life, and I come from Toronto. It doesn't move, and the speed bumps, holy mackerel. So I find it extremely stressful, and the noise because of all the construction all the time. So what you're dealt with is, and I mean that's in downtown obviously, but quite a bit different. And I find people to be very reserved, and I can only guess maybe that's a part of it. They don't offer a lot of information. They're uncertain about giving out a phone number. I've had people where they prefer to text. They don't even talk to people on the phone. They've told me that. I only give my phone number to 2 people. I text or email. I've never seen anything like it.
yeah, I feel like these days it's a very personal thing to call somebody.
It seems to be. Now, I've never experienced that in Ontario, though, or anywhere else that I've been in the United States or in Canada.
Yeah.
I have uniquely experienced it here. So yeah, it's quite a bit different. People themselves, obviously very nice, but Yes, quite different.
You mentioned that they think very differently.
Well, that's what I meant, is through even speaking to them and not giving information and very private. And I don't know if it's because I think it's because there's just so much stress. I've asked people if, if you had an additional $100 that you had to pay for bills in a month, most of them couldn't do it. And they already don't have a car or a house or even an apartment, many of them. I've talked to so many people where they're mid-30s and it's the norm just to rent a room because they can't afford anything else. And there's lots of jobs.
Yeah.
Well, there were lots of jobs.
Yeah, well, is that something that would motivate you more to want to move here permanently or on a more long-term basis? Did we freeze, did we?
Yeah, and that didn't come out. I couldn't make out what that was.
Is that something that would motivate you to want to move here for a longer term? Or does it put you off coming here?
That would be something that would definitely keep me away forever.
Yeah.
Well, the cost of living is insanity. It's just absolute insanity. But, there are things. You've got the ocean and it's very beautiful and the people are very nice and the weather is great. So I guess wherever you have, there's a balance, right?
Yeah. A lot of people need help in Vancouver.
I miss that.
I think a lot of people need help in Vancouver.
Well, they do, but it's frustrating because it's very government monopolized as well. So that is another frustrating thing is the government tells you in order to be licensed what to do, when to do it, how to do it. So that's also something that's a little more freeing if you have your own practice. And where do you go? You go to usually what the government offers.
So in terms of moving forward with your business,
Freezing up.
in terms of moving forward with what you do, is the primary thing trying to reach a wider audience of people who are struggling a lot more?
The primary thing would be to empower people to look after themselves better. So to empower people to realize what they put in their bodies makes a huge difference on how they think. If you are eating garbage, your energy is going to be less and your thinking is going to be more negative. And anyone will tell you, yourself, if you're eating well, you feel better. If you're eating garbage, you don't feel well. And most people, they might know that in their subconscious, but they don't actively do it. So empowering people to start looking after themselves, because the government is not going to look after you. The government does not care about every single person out there and what you eat and when you go to bed and what you feed yourself when you're watching TV, or this all adds up. It all does. So it would be empowering people to look after themselves. Come to me, let me get you started, and go and look after yourself and put it into your life, incorporate that and make that consistently year after year. And that's what I would like to be able to see.
And ideally, who would be the types of people that you want to help in the future?
Well, that's everybody. Parents that are raising children because they need to instill that in them at a very early age. After they're 7 or so, it's over, game's over. They really have they're hardwired at that point. So getting that in for parents at children at a very early age is extremely important. And unless they change their attitude as they grow up, because then they're so influenced by social media and everything that comes on TV or on the radio or their friends or what they see on billboards, and it's all just coming at them from everywhere. It's really hard you have to have that initial makeup. It's certainly much easier.
Do you do much work with parents?
Well, sometimes I'm doing a lot of work with parents. So yeah, I guess so. Obviously more in Toronto, but not so much here. Here I've seen more individuals.
Do you think that the openness is a problem in Vancouver?
Well, not if they're in my office, but as far as meeting someone on the street and see, from usually I'm the one asking all the questions. So meeting on the street, very, and I mean, that's a city. Cities are like that, right?
Yeah, I particularly found it very difficult here in the beginning. Um, Out of all of the places that I've kind of started a new life, so to speak, or tried to set up from scratch, um, this is the first one that is an English-speaking country, first of all, other than the one where I'm originally from, and it was the most difficult too, which is
Well, and you're from where? England?
yeah, that's
I
right.
can't recall because I know I asked you before.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's English speaking. And what are the differences that you found?
Between English people and Canadians or Vancouverites. Um,
Vancouver.
Primarily the sense of humor.
Yeah, that's quite a bit different.
Yeah. British people tend to, we don't really change our intonation when we're telling a joke or being sarcastic or just kind of messing around. And so that makes it very difficult for people who are used to hearing the intonation. It makes it very difficult for them to know that you're joking or that you're being sarcastic. So it makes it, people think you're always kind of speaking the truth, even when you're being sarcastic, um, which is, it feels quite odd, but I know why it happens, and kind of find it funny when it does happen. Because obviously that's just my natural way to be, is to not really change my intonation when I'm telling a joke or when I'm being sarcastic. And there's kind of there's a thing with English people where you where we really love to bullshit people for some reason. It's something that we just enjoy so much. To not in like a not in a mean way, but we really love just kind of leading people on and seeing at which point they kind of recognize that we're just messing around. And it's almost like a screening process that we use to see who we can have a deeper relationship with. So I think sense of humor is really important for finding friends, right? And seeing who you can actually relate to. I think sense of humor is something quite deep in terms of,
And extremely important. Sense of humor is huge. Laughter is absolutely huge. And do you see a lot of it here with all the stress that I think is very evident?
I do actually.
That's really good to hear. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, yeah. So like in the beginning for me, it was really difficult here
Hmm.
because I had no community. Right, I found it very difficult to get into a situation where I can laugh with people and where I can feel like in a relationship with people, not necessarily a romantic relationship, but just in relationship. And
Now, are you planning to stay here permanently, or this is another move where you're going to change eventually and try another country out?
I'm planning to. I just hope Canada also plans to let me stay. That would be my
Well,
ideal situation, which is really interesting because I started here hating the place, and I've experienced so much personal growth here in myself that I I really want to stay and kind of go more into the depths of these communities and relationships that I've created. I think that's much more important than um, spending a lot of time traveling. You have lots of superficial relationships with people. You might have a deep
yeah.
conversation, but the extent of the actual relationship and understanding of one another is limited by that time. Um, and I'm much more focused on depth of relationship with people right now, and I've been able to cultivate certain communities here around me, or become part of communities here that I find to be that allow me to express more of the things that I want to be expressing.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to get much
Well,
deeper.
certainly we grow more through adversity, or we grow a lot, or you can grow a lot, I guess, through adversity, if you stay with it and you try to get through it.
Yeah.
Staying there is not a good place, and leaving it behind, there's no growth. But certainly with adversity and using that and to learn about yourself and to change, as you sound like you did, is a lot of personal growth comes from that.
Yeah, so ideally I'd love to stay here and make everything much richer, in a sense. Like you say, it's rare to see people kind of laughing and enjoying life in Vancouver, and I felt very similarly in my first 6 months to nearly a year of being here. It was a very rare occasion. The only occasions where I would find it would be when I went out to a bar, when I go out at night. And I started to become I started to see more of that, the more involved I got in certain groups, or the more I worked to cultivate that around me, to deepen relationships with the people around me, and to kind of force that depth in a way by forcing people to get to know me, and just being a lot more open with, I guess, who I am and what I want in life. And I think that's really important as a screening process as well, to find other people who are open to having that kind of interaction.
Now, do you not feel that you would find that if you were back home? I mean, you obviously had the camaraderie of your friends and your family automatically there, so you may not have to search for that or do that work. And sounds like you were likely forced to do that work, whether you wanted to or not, in order to be happy. Do you think that you could have found that at home? Had you made that same effort, even in light of the fact that you really didn't have to, it was already there?
I couldn't say. I don't know. I would hope so, but it'd be very hard to guess. We're all on the path that we're on for some particular reason, I think.
Well, it's like you keep hearing, or we keep hearing it during this pandemic, it'll give people a chance to see what's really important. It forces them to back off. And I hope they are, because it absolutely will. I don't know that I've seen it, however. I have seen a lot of very angry people because it's extremely trying. I'm sure that there are, but I'm not saying I'm isolated myself, so no one can go out so it's impossible to see. So I certainly hope so, because absolutely you can. And by seeing people in the parks and that, I do see that. So
where are you seeing angry people?
in their cars, when you have some like landlords and people that are out of work, and in the stores, I'm seeing people, look at the news, spitting in their face at the supermarket out of anger. They couldn't take what they wanted. People they're being pushed down, and they're struggling, and there's a lot of stress. So yeah, there's a lot of angry people and stressed out people. And you either look inside yourself and grow and start being a kinder person, or it shows in another way, and usually it comes out as anger.
What would you say to those people? What would be your...
I don't know what I would say to those people. The thing is, people don't listen. If you're not there, and you're not getting fed something that you're not familiar with, they don't listen. If they did listen, I would say exactly the same thing. This is a great time to grow and look within yourself and look for the positive. But it's a whole lifestyle. It just doesn't happen overnight. It starts with little by little, whether it's your food or when you're going to bed, and being consistent, or how you're treating people and your morals. I mean, it's huge. So it's hard to say where to start. Everyone is different, but there is a lot that can be learned always, right?
I'm going to start looking more to notice whether people around me are angry or frustrated or, let's say, irritated. I don't notice it very much. It's not something
Well, you drive. As an arborist, you must have a vehicle.
Yeah. I drive around the city. I drive around Richmond and Delta. Sometimes I'm driving more than I'm working, you know. So I get to see a lot of people, and obviously there are lots of people at the supermarket, and well,
in general, standing in line, I don't see it, but when there's a confrontation, that's when it comes out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I see a lot of people putting on a smile, but as soon as there's a confrontation, that's when it's going to come out. Yeah. And you've got a lot to compare from. You've been to many places.
Yeah. I feel like I might live in a little bubble now.
You're living in a little bubble. It sounds like you're living in a little bubble. A very nice little bubble.
Yeah, I have, like, my evenings are quite full. After a day at work, my evenings are full with things like this. I sit here and talk to people, whether it's a group that I'm part of, or whether it's a group that I have created, or just a conversation like this. That's generally what I spend my evenings doing.
So where's your weak area? If you were to stretch, what area would you like to change?
Oh, my productivity.
Why your productivity?
Because I don't know if it would be considered productivity, but I very much enjoy communicating with people, connecting with people, and I want to offer that to more people. I want to help people connect with each other, and I recognize that I have some skill in that. I have some ability in helping people connect and just connecting with people. And the area that I struggle with is kind of building up a platform that presents that to the world. I'm very much people oriented, and I'm not very good with technology. Like making a website, for example, I suck at that. And just like
lot to it.
Technological things, I suck at those. I'm much more of a social animal than like a logical process individual. And especially now more than ever, because I am kind of on my own after work every day, I need to get at least a minimal level of skill in those things, so that I don't have to like delegate those to other people. Or, you know, I'd like to have some basis of that. When it comes to actually doing it, my motivation just drops. Just like, there are other things I could be doing, just like sending a message to somebody or having a conversation with somebody. I find it so much more fulfilling to do that. But I recognize the importance of building the foundation of how things are presented to the world. I need a lot of help with that from people.
Well, it sounds like you're already doing that. And certainly, obviously, the more you do, the better you get, like anything else. Yeah. So how long have you been working at your project? I know since you and I talked the first time that you had that in the works.
Yeah. So what I'm doing now is kind of stemmed out of my life experience. I became very aware in my mid-20s that how important to me community was, and how healing it can be for people, how necessary it is for people to be in a community, and to be working towards goals together, to be achieving things together, and how that helps people to connect more deeply, and how it helps them to move forward in life. Without a community, you find that often like addictions, depression, anxiety can be very closely related to depth of connection with other people. And the more deeper connections you have with the people who are in close proximity to you, the less likely you are to fall into those detrimental states, if you will.
So how would you change that? Because few people would disagree with you. Most people would agree with you, but on the other hand, very few people do it. In the building where I am, when the COVID came out, I know I went door to door just to, not knowing how long we were going to potentially be inside, just to say, hi, I'm so and so, and here's my number, and can we exchange if you're interested, and let's all kind of work together. It's one of those small 3-story walk-ups, and everyone was interested. And that was, what are we talking, a month ago now? And nothing. I've been in touch with each of them once a week, and fine, one word, and there really hasn't been anything. And at some point you kind of draw back, because obviously you don't want to interfere on their life. But is everyone in a good place? I really doubt that. Yeah. Are some of them? I'm sure that they are. But although we give lip service to saying that, how do you actually do that?
Yeah, I don't fully know. I've dabbled with different things, like creating events where people can come to and kind of like play games together, in a sense, like team building like activities to help them overcome certain hurdles in how relaxed and open they feel with that particular group, and then kind of stepping it up to offering people the chance to share their interests or themselves and what they want to do in the future, and then kind of seeing how everybody might be able to help each other in some respect to achieve those goals, or find common goals within that group to work on together. In Canada, because well, maybe I'm just making an excuse saying because I found it so difficult to get started in the beginning, but with a particular workplace community, I organized an event with them which was about having a deeper understanding of one another. So we spent a fair few hours going through some really personal questions with each other. I think having a deeper understanding of the people that you work with creates a healthier environment, because you have a deeper knowledge of why people behave in a certain way, and more acceptance for that, right? Mm-hmm. And that's one way. And my approach at the moment is to offer people a chance to just tell their story, what they do, why they do it, what they love, what they're struggling with, whether that is related to their work or related to their life in general. I don't mind what people want to speak about, but because it's not always work things that you need help with. You need help with your life, right? You need support, you need community. So giving people a chance to share that, and a chance for other people to witness that, I just believe that that's going to help people connect. I don't know how.
Absolutely. And I've always found you can't be vague. And that's a lot of, when I was doing marriage counseling, that I had a lot of success is they would often have gone to 2 or 3 others prior to me, or usually one, and I would often tell them, go to someone else so you can compare against someone else. And I wouldn't leave them in the open as far as you need to go on a date or you need to have more fun, because that's so vague, and they're already struggling. They know that. They don't know how. They have no idea. So we would sit and we would plan. What do you enjoy doing? What would a date be for you? What about this Thursday? Like we'll go to the point of choosing a day. And what time would you be leaving? And what would you talk about? And you really have to go to basics. And when we did that, it was hands down very, very helpful for everyone. And they'll stop you when they already know the answer. And when they don't, because they'll leave and they won't do anything. They'll know it, and you'll see them the next week and they'll say the same thing. Oh yeah, well, we didn't get time. So you have to hold them accountable, and you have to help them through it in small steps.
Yeah. Accountability is a huge factor. I think achieving common goals, or working towards achieving common goals, and accountability in that, I think are primary facets of building community.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is. And it is in many things, because we're so busy and we're pulled in so many different directions. So if someone's not going to say, well, did you eat healthy this last week, or did you do whatever goal you set for yourself personally? Who's going to know? And you do it the next day and the next day, and you think, oh yeah, I did mean that. I'll make it for my New Year's resolution next year. So it's hard when you're pulled in so many different directions.
Yeah. Do you have any goals yourself at the moment?
To get back to Ontario.
Yeah. Are you formulating a plan of how to do that?
Well, because I'm driving.
Yeah.
So that's a good week drive. That's a good 7 hours a day driving for 7 days. So until the roads are clear and the stores are open, I really am not willing to make that trip. The hotels are closed in many cases. No, thank you.
Yeah. And so what do you plan to do in the
So
meantime?
that's the only plan, just waiting. I'm sorry?
What do you plan to do in the meantime?
Well, I'm doing a lot of writing, and I'm seeing clients and keeping myself occupied. And I called a church yesterday, and I'm volunteering my time as much as I can for the people there. And they have a fairly large congregation where I can, I'm offering my services for free in many instances, and anything that's available. I would love to be able to make myself useful.
Yeah.
But people don't even ask often.
I think some people need to be told.
Many people need to be told. Probably you and I both.
Yeah. So you've drastically changed your pricing for the situation, right?
I'm sorry, drastically changed.
The pricing of your services given our situation.
Well, I've offered 75% off, and even free just if somebody needs it. But the other thing is, well, I mean, that's another issue that I've always had with counseling, is it's ridiculously high priced for everyone. Not everyone can afford it. Not everyone has insurance plans. So I wanted to make sure that if you can help yourself, you don't have to worry about that. And if you can't afford it, it should be affordable, and you shouldn't have to wait a year or 2 years to get into the one that is affordable with someone who's a novice with no experience whatsoever. And it's always nice to talk to someone, but it should be affordable to everyone. So I do, depending on how much you make, and at this point even the barter system, because there's a lot of different things that I could use or somebody else could use. It should be affordable to everyone.
That's a pretty beautiful thing that you're offering that to people.
Well, and a lot of insurance plans that, usually the average is $500, and at $185 a session, or even $125 a session, how many visits do you get from that? Especially when your first visit is basically giving information. What's your name? What is your address? When are you born? And by the time you're finished, your hour is up. And now what do you have? 2 or 3 more visits for your insurance plan? So it's just not affordable enough, and it's not available enough.
How does it make you feel to do the work that you do?
I'm very good at it. I've done it for a long time. It's a feel-good job for sure.
Okay.
It feels a lot better when I see people having success and not coming back the next week or so and not having had time. But yeah, when you see success, it's, of course.
What does the success look like?
Success is whatever your success is. So if I ask you what would be success for you, and we describe that and we set up a plan, that would be my success, that you're achieving that.
That's great. Thank you, Jennifer. I'm going to stop recording now. I really
Great, thank you.
appreciate you. I really appreciate you giving me your time today.
Well, I really like to talk to you aside from the recording, and as well as your friend, Juno.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Because you've got some great ideas, and I need some exposure, and you want to do what I would like to do, and that's reach a lot of people for the better good. So certainly more people getting involved in something is going to have more success.
Yeah.
So I would love to talk to you a little further about if we could somehow reach more people, because that's my biggest frustration, is not being able to get through to anyone. And I hadn't really put the time in to do that. I wanted to establish the meetup, potentially see a client or two, and then I would deal with that when I come back in the summer. And it was kind of just getting your toes in the water. But now that I'm here, it would be nice to be able to work on something a little more with your teeth in it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I'm curious to know what those books are behind your head and what you read, but I can't make out any of the names. Focus is the only one I...
They're just for show.
Well, they look very nice.
They're all books that I picked up from a friend. I usually only get my books from the library, and obviously now the library's closed, so I lost access to any to books, basically.
Yeah, I've been doing the same. Every time I see those little libraries at the side of the road, I hop out of the car and see if there's any good reading.
Yeah. So a friend of mine left quite recently to go back to his hometown because of this situation, and I am keeping some of his books safe for now. But they're all basically like kind of, I guess they would be in like the self-help section. But yeah.
So tell me a couple of books that you've read that had an impact on you.
I would say King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. That had a pretty interesting effect on me. It's about...
Well, certainly an interesting title.
Yeah, it's about masculine psyche, the male psyche, I guess you could say that. The four archetypes of masculinity, in a sense. The Way of the Superior Man was quite interesting. That was one of the last books that I read. There's a lot of good stuff in there, and some really, like, some things that I'm still a bit kind of like have some resistance to, but I still really enjoyed it, and there were a lot of things in there that I found very useful. Another one I would say is I'm terrible with names of books. I think God's in Every Man was a good...
I like the titles. They sound like that.
There's also Goddesses in Every Woman as well, by the same author. And it's all about archetypes as well. It's like the Greek mythological stories, gods as archetypes within your psyche. And there are gods and goddesses in both men and women, or in both males.
Have you ever heard of the book, a Canadian author from Toronto, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari?
I've heard of it. I've never read it.
It's a very good read, and I know him well, Robin Sharma. And again, just like yours, the title is self-explanatory, and he was a lawyer, very busy, very active, and he had a heart attack and took stock of his life and changed everything. So it does have a profound effect. He still has an office in downtown Toronto, but a whole different ballgame. Really nice fellow.
Yeah,
and a great book. It might have even been a bestseller on the bestseller, because a lot of people have heard of it, and I used to give that book out a lot to read.
Right.
Sounds similar though to other ones, and the titles that you have certainly sound like there's a lot of depth to them.
Yeah, but it's like what you say with your approach to therapy, with your approach to your clients. If people don't integrate those things into their daily habits, into their behavior, then there's nothing that can come of it. You can read a great book and be like, oh, that was interesting, nice point of view. Or
Well, they can't, because it's so big. There's so much that you have to do, and where do you start? There probably are books that tell you where to start, but now they have to find them, and I don't know where to tell them, but I can tell them where to start myself. But it can be very daunting. Where do you start? And is it all important? And what are the right things? And then you're bogged down by the social media and your friends and getting out and your job and commitments and maybe 2 jobs and taking the bus, and where do you even have time? And how do you deal with the problems? How do I make something healthy every day, all day long, and get to the supermarket and afford it? Like, everything comes with its own problems. Who helps you solve those problems? And once, usually when you reach them, you've reached a roadblock, and now it's off the shelf, maybe next year.
Yeah.
So it's very daunting.
I think that's why it's so important for people to stay connected with other people and to stay honest. And even if you're feeling really shit, even if you're feeling really down and miserable and you feel like the world is crushing you, you have to tell people that. I think you need to have people around you who are okay with hearing you say that as well. I think that's really important. And not just a therapist, but your family and your friends. And you need to choose friends who are that type of person, and get rid of the friends who are not open to hearing the real you.
Well, in many instances, it's just to get a friend or to find friends, because that alone is very difficult.
Yeah.
If you haven't grown up with them, or if you've moved, and a lot of people from Vancouver have moved from elsewhere, and everyone's always putting on a happy face, and when they go home, it's not the same story. But who do they turn to? They don't have answers. There's nothing telling you where. There's a lot of selection and advertisements on TV for drugs and side effects and lawyers, but nothing tells you how to be happy.
Yeah. So something that's dramatically helped me is joining a men's group here in Vancouver. And there are men's and women's groups here. And that's exactly what that group is.
That's really good. I like that.
Yeah, it's like a consistent group of people who that won't really change unless somebody chooses to leave. But it's not like a drop-in thing. It's a group of about 15 people who commit to meeting at a specific time, specific place, once a week, every week, without fail, unless you have some kind of
something like that. Sounds wonderful. How did you find that? I'd like to know more about that.
So the men's group that I'm part of is called the Samurai Brotherhood. You can find that online. The women's group that I know of here, I can't remember their name, but they are affiliated with the Samurai Brotherhood. I'm sure you'd be able to find them online. And yeah, I came across it through somebody that I worked with. And the people who owned a business that I worked for here had a very, I guess, instrumental role in its beginnings a long time ago. And I kind of it didn't even cross my mind to even explore it for a long time, until I got to the point where I felt like I really need to like release a lot, and I need to have people around me who are okay with that. So first of all, the only place where that's going to really be okay is where there are other people there who need to do the same thing.
Everybody needs to do that. Everybody.
Yeah. Well, so I'll rephrase, where there are other people there who are there to do that. It's their reason for being there.
Mm-hmm.
They want that to happen. They want to be open, honest, raw, whatever they're feeling, whether it's something amazing, whether they want to share a win, or whether
Well, that is like something new age, maybe city, like that what you're describing sounds like long time ago, Andy Mayberry, where your neighbors used to take that part, and people were much closer, where you just can't do that. That sounds like a really good thing.
Yeah. I think people are scared to be as open as you can be in that particular setting with their neighbors these days.
Oh no, it's not possible. It absolutely is not possible. And your neighbor will probably never talk to you again because they don't want to hear it.
Yeah, there's too much proximity.
Yeah.
It's way too close. It's like,
yeah. No, I love that. It's just such a great idea.
Yeah, that's been really powerful for me.
I don't doubt it. I would love to set some groups up like that myself for my clients, but first of all, you have to reach those people, and that is the hardest part, is doing that and doing that in a timely way.
Yeah, and people also have to commit to it and be consistent.
Yeah. Well, getting them to commit is not hard. I certainly have lots of ways where you can get them to commit. Certainly when you put some money into it, or when you put a little sweat or equity or something into it, you have a commitment. People don't usually like to give something, especially their money, if they're not getting something, and that's, I don't think that's the hard part. Reaching them and finding those people and getting them in is the harder part, because they need to be able to find you, and we don't have the yellow pages anymore. Not really. Well, I need to move on to other things here.
Okay.
But thank you so much, and I would like to talk to you again, probably sooner than later, if you have any time. I guess you have a lot of your evenings are now booked because you've got your project that you're doing.
I still managed to find time. That would be fine. We could probably set something up on the weekends. Weekends are completely open, and I'm here all day.
Okay, where are you? Like, where are you located?
Granville and Broadway.
Okay.
Just over the bridge from downtown.
Oh, I don't even try to go over that bridge anymore. I'm in North Vancouver. Anything across that bridge is just, it's like in a foreign land. I just don't want to deal with that traffic.
Yeah.
But yeah, weekends sound great.
Okay.
So if you're interested, I would certainly like to talk to you further, and I'm waiting to hear back from Juno. And
Great.
Yeah,
we'll set something up.
Well, thank you for your time. If you have any other questions, and be in touch. I'm certainly always available. I have absolutely nothing to do overall aside from try to fill my time while I'm trying to get back to Ontario, or waiting for us to be able to be free again.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for everything. I really appreciate it. And
thank you.
I'll reach out to you.
Okay, well, I look forward to it. Have yourself a good evening.
You too. Take care.
All right. Thank you, Samuel.